Mistletoe. If you didn't already know, you've probably guessed by now that it is poisonous, but that's not what I'm going to be talking about. In some places, mistletoe extract is actually used as an anti-cancer extra therapy on top of chemotherapy and radiotherapy and all that. So I thought it'd be more interesting today to talk about how and why the difference between a poison and a medicine can sometimes just be the dose, and whether mistletoe can actually be useful as an add-on therapy for cancer treatment. So firstly, I think it's useful to take a step back from it and look at why mistletoe is poisonous. In all honesty, we don't actually know completely, but it seems to have something to do with some of the chemicals in the mistletoe disrupting the natural electrical activity of your cells. That means that they can't communicate properly, that means that things can go wrong. And if you were to go nibbling berries accidentally, don't go nibbling berries accidentally. Don't go nibbling berries on purpose, just don't go nibbling berries. 3 or 4 would probably be enough to cause a problem for a child, about 10 would be enough to cause a problem for an adult. It does vary though, and there's more of the poisonous chemicals in the leaves and the stems than there are in the berries, and the amount of the poisonous chemicals varies depending on the variety of mistletoe, where it's been growing, and that kind of thing. So what about a possible anti-cancer effect? Well, if it can damage the cells of our body by interrupting that natural electrical communication between them, it's plausible that it could damage cancer cells in a similar way, and some cancer cells might be more susceptible to it. So maybe you could give it in a dose that would damage the cancer cells but not damage our own cells too much. Then it might work. Might, though. Just because something sounds plausible doesn't mean that it's true. And even if it is true, then finding that right dose, that right formula, is much easier said than done. So people have looked at this. People have done scientific experiments looking at whether mistletoe extract can stop the growth of cancer cells. There have been some studies in labs that have suggested that it probably can. There have been some that have just been done on cells, basically in test tubes, and there have been some that have been rolled out a little bit further, because the next step, once you've got your evidence in a lab, in your test tube, you start to look in animal models, so in mice and in rats. Mistletoe extract might have some anti-cancer properties in mice and rats. Sounds great. But, as we know, just because something works in a lab, it doesn't mean it's a cure for people. People aren't test tubes. People aren't mice and rats. So there have been studies that have looked at it in people. At the beginning of 2019, there was a review that pulled together all of the studies that had looked at the effect of mistletoe extract on cancer in people. And basically, it showed that there isn't any benefit to it. And I think this is a really good example of when something's plausible and it could work and you want it to work, you hope it works, but it doesn't necessarily connect. That doesn't mean that it never will. We know mistletoe has an effect on your body. It looks like mistletoe extract can have anti-cancer properties in a lab, but at the moment it doesn't work as a cancer treatment. Maybe one day it will. Maybe one day we'll find a bit more about the active chemicals in mistletoe and how they affect our bodies and be able to use that as an anti-cancer drug. Maybe we'll find the right dose for the right person, but finding the right dose and the right formulation is difficult. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Have you ever tried mistletoe extract? Do you know anyone that has? I think that it's really useful to hear what you guys think about this sort of thing. It's very easy for this kind of conversation to get a bit too polarised between people that are very stringent about their need for scientific demand, to the point where it can kind of push people away that might be keen for a more natural way of looking at things. But also, just because you want something to work and it sounds plausible that it might, it doesn't mean that it does. Anyway, that's enough of me for now. I hope you've enjoyed the videos. Remember, if you do, then click the like button, subscribe and share the links. I'm also going to start putting out some other videos today, so keep an eye out for it. Later will be the first episode in my series of Medivlogs. Stay tuned for that, and I'll see you tomorrow. Well, I'll see you later if you watch that one.